Chapter 30. Chris. Chris stood tall in the center of the clearing, his feet planted firmly on the dirt-covered ground, watching the group of fresh-faced volunteers training. He could hear the rustle of leaves as Lonnie approached him from behind. Her scent, a mix of cinnamon and homemade bread, drifted towards him, making his heart beat faster. She stood next to him, her rubber boots sinking slightly into the earth. Lonnie glanced over at the group of soldiers training before them.
"Looks like we have a good turnout,"
she remarked. Chris's fingers fiddled with the edges of his glasses as he nervously scratched the back of his head. He took a deep breath, trying to hide the way Lonnie's mere presence made his heart race and his palms sweat. Since that life-changing day when Lonnie nearly collided with him, the day Malik tried to kill him, their bond had deepened. He snorted, thinking about how the biggest mistake he ever made was also the day Lonnie entered his life, causing him to fall flat on his ass. She was the most beautiful woman he had ever encountered. If the decree takeover hadn't happened, their paths would never have crossed. Despite it all, he stood next to this extraordinary woman, yearning to take her hand, kiss it, and ask her to be his. But he didn't, of course. No, kindness was just who she was. She was good to everyone, including him. There's no chance she would ever be interested in him. How could she? Lonnie knew the truth about him, who he really was. A liar, a cheat, and a weak shit of a man. The corners of his mouth turned down, a deep crease formed between his eyebrows.
"What's wrong, Chris?"
she asked, her voice laced with concern. Meggy-Mugs, fluffy and clean, sat at Lonnie's feet. The Shih Tzu raised her one paw and pressed it on Lonnie's foot, as if claiming ownership of her human. Damn dog. It was like the little canine could read people's minds. But his thoughts both softened as the little dog's tail wagged as she looked at Chris. She shifted, as if about to rise and approach him, but let out a welcoming bark instead.
"Hush now, Meggy. Everyone's trying to train,"
Lonnie soothed, bending to scratch the dog behind the ears. The girl who came with the dog, the one that was pregnant and only 16, looked over with a fierceness on her face. She glared at Chris with accusation. Lonnie greeted the girl with a wave, and her tense expression softened as Lonnie stroked Meggy-Mug's fur. Summer's lips pressed into a tight line as she shot a disapproving glance at Chris before turning to Kai with a matching expression. The two locked in combat, wielding thick wooden sticks with fluid movements that Chris had been teaching them. He was passionate about Bartitsu, a fighting style he claimed to have practiced for years and deemed as the gentleman's technique. Weeks before, Kai stood and observed Chris's moves with crossed arms, showing his skepticism. "I've never heard of this," he said, his tone betraying his doubt. Chris was unfazed, his love for Bartitsu shining through as he explained its history and benefits. Kai couldn't help but scoff at the idea of fighting like a gentleman, but with no other options for training, he took part in the sparring with the other volunteers. Much to his dismay, this day Chris delegated Kai to team up with Summer. Lonnie's brother towered over the girl. He tied his long black hair back into a high bun on top of his head, keeping it tucked out of his way. Kai's eyes narrowed as their sticks met in a loud clash.
"You need to focus, girl,"
he scolded.
"One moment of distraction can be fatal in combat."
His voice had an edge of annoyance, a common occurrence for Kai, who always seemed to have something or someone bothering him. Summer lunged at Kai, swinging her stick wildly. He flinched as the stick hit his arm with a sharp thud. Wide-eyed, he looked up at her in disbelief.
"A girl in your condition shouldn't be fighting. It's foolish. You're going to hold us back. Leave the fighting to the stronger people."
Summer's face dropped, the blood draining of all color.
"Uh-oh,"
Lonnie said beside Chris.
"He's right,"
he said, gesturing towards Summer, taking in her slight frame and obvious baby bump.
"She shouldn't be fighting. Look at her, she's 100 pounds soaking wet, and already showing. She's too young, too small, and too pregnant."
Lonnie chuckled to herself, looking at the girl, her arms extended, holding a stick at her brother. They looked like David and Goliath, readying to battle.
"That girl has been fighting her whole life.
She's exactly what we need to protect Hayden." Lonnie laughed.
"Besides, she has something to fight for that many of us here don't."
"What do you mean?"
"Chris, come on, think about it. What does she have
Before Chris could answer, Kai's voice rumbled through the air.
Training is no place for a girl in your condition. Think about your baby.
Think about my baby? Why do you think I'm here?
Summer blushed deeply, and Kai's face mirrored hers.
It's reckless, and you'll be a liability.
His emotions, normally kept buried down hidden inside him, were bubbling to the surface. As the sun beat down on her, Summer lifted her stick and struck Kai's arm with a satisfying thwack. Her chest heaved up and down, with the adrenaline coursing through her body. Kai let out a loud yelp, grasping at his left arm. He clenched his teeth and closed his eyes, trying to suppress the fiery anger boiling inside of him.
In the apocalypse, there's always someone pregnant, man! It's the fucking apocalypse! What do you expect?
Summer, prepared for a fight, raised her stick high, ready for battle.
You think babies just hatch or something? Women have babies! Get over it!
Kai threw his hands up, tossing his stick before storming off. He charged past Chris and Lonnie, then abruptly paused, his rich voice becoming clear, brief, and precise.
I can only take so much, Lonnie. This girl is a threat, unreliable, and a risk.
Kai's breathing was heavy, his anger on the verge of erupting. Lonnie rested her hand on her brother's shoulder as Chris watched, stunned. He felt the same as Kai.
Once upon a time, people said the same thing about you.
Kai's face flushed a deep shade of red as his anger boiled inside of him. He clenched his jaw, wanting to say something to his sister. Instead, with a frustrated grunt, he turned on his heels and stormed away, shaking his head in disbelief.
He's right, you know.
She just looked at Chris and smiled.
There's one thing I know when I see a soul. That girl you and Kai think is problematic, a nuisance, a liability. We want her on our side.
Lonnie, I understand you're a caring and empathetic person who wants everyone to come together and help each other, but there are people who cannot be saved or changed.
With a steely gaze, she locked eyes with Chris, making him squirm under her intense scrutiny. He shifted his weight and avoided her accusing stare, feeling the heat of shame rise to his cheeks. She knew the truth about his involvement with the decree. Chris Onweir, the man behind the button that shut everything down. Her narrowed eyes were like daggers, accusing him without saying a word.
I'm sorry.
His head hung low as he mumbled, his cheeks flushed with shame. Silence fell between them as the sounds of shouting and clanging wood filled the air. Twirling her stick, Summer executed the moves Chris had taught them. She practiced alone, the others unwilling to spar with her. Undeterred, Summer's stick whipped through the air in fluid movements, as though it were an extension of her arm. Maggie Muggs let out a bark of encouragement, her tiny paw still resting protectively on top of Lonnie's right foot.
I'm grateful you saw something in me. Something I didn't see in myself. You mean the world to me, Lonnie.
Chris's hand trembled with emotion. He gazed into her warm brown eyes and felt a lump form in his throat. Without thinking, he took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. But almost as soon as their skin touched, he jerked his hand back, ashamed he'd touched her after just berating Summer moments ago. Lonnie extended her hand and, to his astonishment, grasped his fingers, giving them a comforting squeeze.
I trust her, Chris, because she has everything to lose if we fail.
He looked at her, distracted by the feel of their fingers interlocking, their palms pressed firmly together.
What do you mean? We can protect her.
Well, we can attempt to keep her safe. She doesn't know how to trust. You can see it on her. It's burned in her soul.
Chris struggled to focus on Lonnie's words. His eyes kept drifting to her lips. His hand ached to caress her soft cheeks, and his lips yearned to meet hers, tasting the passion that radiated from her. He knew he was unworthy of this amazing woman, but he couldn't help the intense desire he felt for her.
She's headed for trouble if she relies solely on self-preservation. We all want to protect ourselves, but in this situation, we need each other.
His voice was hoarse in his throat.
Chris.
Lonnie leaned into him, raised her hand and touched the side of his cheek, her eyes looking at him with such kindness and something else. Was he seeing things through a filter of his own desires? Looking into her eyes, he saw nothing but the purest soul, the only person he could ever picture himself with. She had ruined him for any other woman.
You don't understand.
Her voice was soft and patient.
What is there to understand?
He said, stumbling over his own words.
She's not doing this to protect herself.
Chris furrowed his brow and turned to face the girl. Her movements were precise and forceful, fueled by determination and anger. They were the exact techniques he had taught her during their training sessions together. She confidently bobbed and weaved, her petite frame moving with grace. Her pregnant belly was barely noticeable under her well-worn hoodie, but when it did protrude out, it reminded Chris of her vulnerability. She was small and pregnant. Despite this, she showed no signs of weakness. Chris had no doubt she could defend herself for now, but for how long? That belly would not stay small.
I'm sorry, Lonnie. I don't understand. See her? Look at her. She's a child trying to play soldier.
She's a mother trying to protect her baby, Chris. She's trying to secure a future for her child.